real Kyper and Bourne on Sportsnet 590 The Fan.
We are jam-packed for the next 2 hours. Nick Kypreos, Justin Bourne, Derek Brandeo, Sammy McKee, and the new, fresh, young blood to the real Kyper and Bourne show, David Sis Boom Bah.
If you missed a thrilling bit of research on where Sis Boom Bah comes from, listen to yesterday's show.
And screwed up the lineup again. Derek Brandeo was out sick today. Our good friend Andrew Dutch Holland is joining us today. Yes.
I screwed up the lineup.
I screwed up the lineup again. 2 days in a row.
Hopefully, we've got 3 guests today, and hopefully none of them challenge Brad May's record of 3 dropped calls, Sammy.
That was Colby.
Oh, yeah, Colton, sorry.
Colby.
I've lost track. Colby Armstrong
Not Colton
dropped 3
Orr, not
times.
Colton Parayko. Colby.
So, David Amber, Mike Rupp, Billy Guerin, general manager of the Minnesota Wild. He's going to be on board in the next hour to tee up the Minnesota Wild and the Toronto Maple Leafs Friday night matchup. In the meantime, practice as usual and all the attention on the lines.
Yes.
Who's with who?
I mean, nothing's any different, right?
I don't know. I was hoping you would tell me.
It looks exactly the same. They're going to go back with the same group they went with last game, which looked pretty good. Until it didn't.
I was really excited for, like I said yesterday, really anticipating one of the reporters, maybe David Alter's tweet with all the different line combinations.
Yeah.
And it was exactly the same. So nothing different.
Yeah.
But we've had a little bit from Sheldon Keefe on both sides that he wasn't going to change it day to day. And then it was the feeling that he wasn't going to change it at all. And now Goldilocks is like right in the middle.
So it's not a one-off, but at the same time, it's not forever. So it's a 3 off or maybe a 4 off and 4 tonight. We'll see how it goes. We'll figure it out after that.
All right. Do we have any Sheldon Keefe on the line, Sammy?
We do. Keefe, on how many line combos he's thought of second option?
Yeah, lots. Especially now that we've been through it, and you see how John's really embraced being on the wing and how that's gone, and then knowing that O'Reilly has the ability to play the wing as well, and we've got various other guys that can move around in positions. Yeah, there's lots of options there for sure. So, I'm very intrigued by the ability to move some things around. As I've told the guys from that line in particular, though, that I think it is important that, while I do want to try different things, I don't think it makes any sense to have it be switching things every game or every couple of games. We don't have that much schedule, but we do have enough schedule where we can give some things time to breathe a little bit before moving on to the next thing. And there will be a time, even if things are really rolling, that I do have to try some different things just to be certain that we have given some time to multiple looks to be prepared for anything that the future might bring.
I kind of feel bad for Sheldon Keefe a little bit moving forward because there was such a big buildup of the versatility and the options and this and that, and I can do this, and it's going to be his job from here on in to nail what is perfect, and when it's not perfect, how long do you sit on it and wait? And the vultures will be out there to say you waited too long or you should have done this and you could have done that. And there's a ton of pressure on Sheldon moving forward here to find that right mix, the chemistry.
And you only get 24 games to do it. And you don't want to be experimenting the last week before postseason. You want to have this finalized for the final 5 games, don't you? You want to know what your group is, not still tinkering with 5 games to go in the season. So call it under 20 games to figure it out. So, there's a lot of options and not a lot of runway to figure it out.
I'll tell you another thing, too. If you get a couple of more, and that's all it's going to take, guys, a couple of more appearances, maybe as early as Friday, maybe it's Sunday against Seattle, maybe it's versus McDavid or in Calgary. But if you get a couple of more looks of Ryan O'Reilly and Mitch Marner together, like you got in Buffalo, there's going to be a tremendous amount of pressure for Sheldon to keep that.
Mm-hmm. Interesting, because I was hearing him talk there, and it reminded me of my parenting a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old, and that once you do thing one time, they think it's okay to do every time. And he has now put John Tavares on wing for a game. And I heard him in there say, after seeing John adapt there pretty well and whatever, it's, we've got a lot of options. My thought is now he's put him on the wing and it was okay. Is he open now to doing that in different ways, not just with Ryan O'Reilly? Could things change where Tavares plays wing on a different line now? Like maybe with Austin Matthews and Willie Nylander, or maybe, that way you got Mitch and Ryan O'Reilly together, which they seem to have a nice dynamic. Could you create a third line where Tavares is a winger? Achari and Kampf can be your centers. Are there more options?
Isn't there a name for that in baseball?
Versatility?
I don't know. I'm dating myself, but I remember names like Garth Orge and Ransom Molyneux, where he's playing third, he's playing shortstop. They got him on left field.
Utility guy,
right?
He's a utility guy.
He's BJ Bird one game. I don't know. He does it all.
Blown away by a BJ Bird reference on the show. Is that even his name?
I don't know.
I like when guys, one of my big baseball takes is I like when guys just play their position.
Yeah.
Like when there's this guy's a really good shortstop. I don't need him to play second or third or left field. The Jays seem to be a little obsessed with that versatility. Anyways, I'm getting on a tangent.
The second year, Kevin Biggio, and things aren't going great at any position.
Yeah, you're
That's
like,
why
you're below average at all of them.
Yeah.
Anyways.
And there will be times when it doesn't feel great for John Tavares. You just hope that if it does come, it comes naturally as a guy that maybe is just having a bad night, not a guy that is second-guessing the position that he's playing.
Yeah. It's interesting. I wonder, if the way to deploy these lines now is to not, because you have so many options, is to basically have every game be a one-period tryout or a half a game tryout where you're saying, are we clicking? Are we not? Because you have so many things that you can go to, so many different looks. You mentioned the pressure on Keefe. That'll be one of them, is in-game adjustments and going away from things that aren't working quickly.
Well, at least he's got a practice under his belt with Achari and Ryan O'Reilly. Let's have a listen to Sheldon Keefe.
Yeah, I think it can only help. Obviously, it's that the next piece of the puzzle. They've played a home game. They've played a couple games on the road now, spent time with their teammates. So getting that feel for the practice and being in this facility and seeing more new faces and all those kind of things, it just sort of completes that adjustment period for them, I think. And, everything will start to feel a little more like normal, at least the new normal for them. I think both guys have been adjusting very well. But talking to them today, they just feel like today was a good day for them.
And a look at 5 forwards, which we've seen before earlier in the year, but never with Ryan O'Reilly as a top as 5 forwards on a power play.
But only on the 5-on-3.
Right. That was a 5-on-3 unit,
which the Leafs have not had an opportunity 5-on-3.
This is my favorite Leaf stat of the season that I did not know.
Yeah, no 5 and not one.
Only team in the NHL.
Not one team in the NHL has committed an infraction on the Toronto Maple Leafs when they've been up a man. Perfect. Cleanest teams in the league play against the Leafs.
Well, that's just a ton of respect for a very dangerous.
Yeah, a ton of respect is one word. A total joke is the other word. How does that's insane?
Yeah.
There's 25 games left. They haven't had 5-on-3.
Okay.
That's mental.
And then there's 12.
They're going to have 4 in the power.
Are there 12 teams with 1?
I don't know. All I know is the Leafs have 0. That's the only number that matters to me.
Bring me more information.
I'll look into
that.
this. We'll get a useful or useless on that for you. Didn't they have a bunch in the playoffs against Tampa last year? By the way, the Leafs last year in the playoffs were on the power play a ton versus Tampa Bay.
Both teams were.
Way more than regular season.
Both teams were.
Yeah.
There was it was, you couldn't breathe on a guy without a penalty getting called.
Setting the tone for the officials.
And then there wasn't a penalty called the rest of the playoffs after that.
So we're assuming now that if we ever see 5 forwards again on a power play, it will only be 5-on-3 because we saw it a few times already this season.
No, I think they'll go to it if it's not working. I think that's option B.
Yeah.
I think that's legitimately the first next thing they'll do. It's bad English, isn't it? First next thing?
Next thing?
We'll see.
Yeah, it seems like bad English, not gonna lie.
Well, they've got a lot of next things they could do, and it's the first next thing.
Yeah, okay. In that context, seems a little better.
All right, it's Thursday. Wrote an article today for the Toronto Star focusing on the fact that Jake Muzzin's been out. And although we saw a very big trade lately, it didn't kind of revolve around finding a replacement for Jake Muzzin.
Mm-hmm.
Before we get into this conversation, let's just go to Sheldon Keefe on Jake Muzzin and his thoughts.
Not necessarily new for us. And you're always holding out hope that things might settle for him, but I knew that it was probably going to be a real long shot. All that said, he has been in this facility every day that we've been here. He's at every game. He's made most of the road trips with us, and it just speaks to his character for wanting to continue to be a part of it, do all that he can to help the team while not playing, while also still pushing himself. And you see him in the gym consistently and all those kind of things to do everything that he can in his control. Unfortunately, his body's just not going to allow him to play here this season. But again, speaks to this character to stay with it. Our players love having him around, enjoy his personality, his friendship, and then his leadership and his perspective on things. Now it's a different perspective not being in uniform every day, yet he still has connections to our team. He knows how we play. He knows what the expectations are. He's got great bonds with our players. He's a integral piece of our leadership group, and that won't change.
And I've said this before. There's two ways you can go about it. You got the guy that's all in and still wants to be seen. I was that way when I broke my leg with the Toronto Maple Leafs. Always found a way to stay with the guys, watch it in the dressing room, wait for them. Even when I was at a cast and crutches, 2 or 3 guys are going out for a bite to eat after the game, I'd go with them.
You know, it's interesting, too, because in my time with the Leafs Marlies organization, they tended to keep injured players away from the group because you call someone else up and there's another body in there, and then you got all these people in the gym. There's just too many people around, and so they generally wanted to keep people away, which is hard when you're injured and you're also excluded. So that's great that Muzzin is one of the guys.
And there's also
he's half front office at this point.
There is that you don't want to take anyone's time up that's playing.
Yeah.
Right? So you got to schedule your therapy sessions.
That's the big part, is getting
really
your treatment
early,
before people
really
come in.
late,
Yeah.
in the afternoons. But the only, just being around the guys. And some guys can handle it and some guys can't. And
Sammy was saying he couldn't do it.
Wouldn't it drive you nuts knowing how good of a player you are when you got hurt? Like, it's not like he's 40 years old. He was still a really valuable contributor to this team, and being around all the guys and seeing them practicing and you're just not able to contribute would kill me. No?
Yeah. In the, read a little bit on
watching
that
someone else
today.
produce a show, I couldn't do it.
Yeah. But they were talking about Muzzin, like watching the guys play rebound after practice. And I was just like, man, yeah, it would be really hard, I think. But good for him for wanting to stay involved.
Yeah. And we just heard Sheldon Keefe saying that they were always a little hopeful, but anyone that really knew there's no chance he was coming back.
Right.
There was although he skated on his own, there was just nothing there to ever think that this guy had a chance to come back this year.
Right.
In saying that,
Yes,
he had plenty of time to watch, talk, and figure out who is going to take his place. And there is no one on the roster and there's no one in the organization that can do that. My article today in the Toronto Star centered around having to now go in the next 7 days, a little over a week, find a replacement. Find that guy.
Mm-hmm.
When you went out and you got Ryan O'Reilly and you gave up what you gave up, with no guarantees that he will be back next year. A pure rental as of now.
In fact, other people speculated he might go back to St. Louis.
You showed your cards.
Mm-hmm.
You really did. And now the only thing left to do is push all your chips in the middle. And I think we spoke of this a little earlier. And it was like, I don't know, they're not going to give up Nyes, and I wouldn't give up Nyes. And we mentioned Ekholm, and I'm like, well, you went out and got Ryan O'Reilly on a rental. You're showing everybody the time is now.
Yep.
You cannot come out of next week's trade deadline with that same blue line.
Good to see you guys have been listening to me. Great to have you both aboard. Welcome.
Yeah.
This feels great.
Yeah.
It's the only way to go.
It is the only way to go. And if it's a first rounder and another prospect, if you can get away with not giving up Nyes, good on you. But if you have to, you do it.
Ekholm, maybe then. What if Nashville would eat $1 million or something for it, but then money'd have to go out. I don't know how that would work.
You know what? If you can get him to eat 25% of it from here on in, and you need to pay for it, then that's what you do.
Yeah.
So, in defense of potentially trading in Matthew Nyes.
Yeah.
I was doing some texting this morning, a buddy of mine, Nick Richard, who does a great job covering all the prospects. And I was asking him about when the Frozen Four is. And Frozen Four is April 6th to 8th. Okay.
Playoffs start the 12th. Don't they? 14th?
It's the Frozen Four is April 6th to 8th.
Yeah.
And
the NHL
17th.
playoffs start.
On 17th.
So here's what I'm getting
That late, 17th?
Yeah.
All right.
Here's what I'm getting
He gets a few practices in.
I think Sammy, go ahead.
Don't you? So he plays. That's if they make the Frozen Four, but they're a prohibitive favorite to do it. They're the number one team in the nation. They're a wagon. They're a very, very good team, Minnesota, that he plays for. If you're looking at it, to me, the turnaround time and getting him not only signed on the dotted line, I guess convincing him, because last year we all thought he was going to be coming to Toronto and he didn't do it. He didn't sign. So it seems like there might be some convincing.
You were hot.
And still kind of hold it against him a little bit. They play on it finishes the 8th, the Frozen Four. And then you have 3 hockey games that week. You go into Florida to play the Panthers, then the next night in Tampa, and then you come home and you play the Rangers. So you're telling me that you're going to sign Matthew Nyes, get him in a practice, play him against 3 of the best teams in the league, and have him ready to play in the playoffs for your team?
First off, I like that the games that he would play are against very good teams to be like, here's the level we need you at. But boy, would that be overwhelming. Probably less pressure than the final games of a national championship, though, to be honest.
I would say. No, I disagree with that completely. It's the NHL. You're playing for one of the best teams in the league. Though. Yeah, but there might be something to play for against Tampa in that game. Who knows what the standings, how they shake out.
True.
So, I don't know. I'm reading your article today, Kyper, and I'm starting to think like, yeah, you know what? Just trade him. Trade him to get a real D-man because they need it.
All right. By the way, that is in support of Sammy being aggressive. I like that. But
you can't.
Do you want to talk more about your article?
No.
Use the Jimmy Vesey example.
Well, yeah, I did. And there was nobody more hyped probably in the last, 10, 15, 20 years than Jimmy Vesey coming out of college and how he declared himself a free agent. Mm-hmm. And the team's clamoring to sign him, including the Toronto Maple Leafs, including offering them to sign his brother if he signed.
Well, didn't they hire his dad and sign his brother?
Dad was involved as a scout.
And he was like, yeah, no.
And sure enough, he's still in the league, and he's a serviceable player, but he is never going to be that frontline star. And I just, at that point, if it's not 100% guarantee, then you can't make the Brian O'Reilly trade without.
No half measures, Kyper.
Right?
It doesn't make
you
sense.
You just can't.
No.
That's what I've been thinking.
In for a penny,
That's
in
exactly
for a pound. It's like, you go halfway in, you burn a big asset, but you still don't go far enough, so you lose. You might as well go in and win the damn series or go down trying.
Like I wrote this whole article watching the second and third period in Buffalo. That, to me, was the the convincer.
More, please.
Right?
Need more.
Like, can you? And we're talking about the forwards and all the versatility and all the great options, and there's no options on the blue line. There's nothing.
No options. So you go Ekholm. Ekholm's the left side guy, right?
He's Muzzin.
He's Muzzin. So Ekholm Hall, Riley Brody, Gio Liljegren. It's pretty good.
It is.
It
but
changes quick.
I would think. I would think at some point a Nashville would have to probably eat maybe a Hull contract. They'd have to take something back. Probably to help alleviate it, depending on how much money they take off of Nashville. But listen, it's Ekholm. It's
so you got Riley, Brody, Ekholm, maybe Hull, Giordano, Liljegren,
Provorov, and Philly. It has to be a guy that is already playing 20 minutes a night, and it's not a taxing 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they do. These guys.
Yeah.
And Luke Schen's not it. Right?
No, he's not it.
So
you'd like to add him rather than not add him.
Let's bring him in. Now a regular on the show, David Amber, host of Rogers Monday Night Hockey on Sportsnet.
Wow.
Is that good?
You did it.
Thank you, pal. Kyper. How are you?
We'll take every viewer. How are you? We're good. I'm a regular now. I love it.
Yeah.
Thank you. I've been elevated.
For sure, because I didn't love your opinions a lot when we worked together, but they've improved.
Well, I'm trying my best. Yeah, you did beat me down a few times, and deservedly so a few times. I'll admit that. But my takes are less hot now. They're more lukewarmish.
I'll take anything you have for us, DA. Right. So let's pick it up where we just left off in terms of, the thought that Kyle Dubas would not go and spend significant draft picks on rentals, and sure enough, he did with Ryan O'Reilly, and the pressure that he has now to maybe just finish this roster off. It just seems a little incomplete to me. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think you guys, I listen to the show all the time. There's substantial pressure, not just on Kyle Dubas, but on the players and all the way up the ladder at MLSC, right? Like, no team has ever lost in 7 straight years in the first round in NHL history. Think about that. This would be a historic failure, and it's hard to even say that only because, again, they're staring down the Tampa Bay Lightning, 3-time defending East champs. So, yeah, there's still some tweaking to be done. The Jake Muzzin news, they have to figure out what their cap situation is, but this isn't a time to be conservative. This isn't a time – you want to be measured in your approach, but there's got to be a sense of urgency here. And if I'm running the team, if I'm finding, if I'm having discussions, I'm trying to land that stud defenseman. And I don't think it's an Erik Karlsson situation with his whole cap hit and what he brings to the table. I think it's more of a Mattias Ekholm. With every Predators loss, I have to think that David Poile is starting to think, I'm a seller, I'm not a buyer. He's even said he's not a buyer. So, a guy like, to me, Mattias Ekholm would be a perfect fit on this Leafs blue line. I think you have to try and find a way, and whether it's not Ekholm or whether it's, more, a Joel Edmondson or whatever, there's a whole, slew of guys that have been discussed as possible guys. That, to me, should be the next step. You've fortified your forward position. You've added depth. You've added versatility, whether O'Reilly's up the middle or whether Tavares is up the middle or whether 1, 2, 3 with Matthews, they're all up the middle. And Achari's a great fit. Like, I think you've done what you need to do maybe up front. Maybe you even have another forward to add. But bottom line is I think you have some versatility up front, and now it's about adding a solid defender that could really help lock things down. Because one thing we've noticed about this team is they're very good defensively, but they still do give up a number of odd man rushes. We saw when they had the 5-0 lead on Buffalo how quickly things can change. So, and you're not going into the playoffs with Vasilevsky or even Ullmark at this point. You're going in with Samsonov, Matt Murray. You're going in with guys who, you're not 100% sure necessarily they're going to be able to carry the team in the playoffs. So to me, a defender makes all the sense in the world.
And how does this affect Kyle Dubas's legacy and reputation? He came in as the calculated, savvy, analytical guy who's going to build the organization. And you get to a point like a lot of GMs where you just got to kind of push your chips in and if it doesn't work this year, will he be looked at as a guy who made the moves he had to make, or a guy who burnt all the futures trying to protect his team? Or what are your thoughts on how it affects him?
I mean, that's a great question, Justin, right? Like, I think you ask 10 different people, you might get 10 different answers.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Kyle Dubas has had a lot of great successes. Unfortunately, the ultimate success, and that's playoff wins and losses and series wins and losses, have not been met in his favor. Not dissimilar to Lou Lamoriello and Brian Burke, et cetera. I mean, we can go down the last chain of 6 or 7 GMs that just haven't found playoff success with the Toronto Maple Leafs. So that whole narrative can change, guys. It's not going to be easy, but I think certainly if there's some level of legitimate playoff success this year, that could totally change the narrative. And I think a lot of people who've been maybe lukewarm on some of the moves he's made will feel a lot more comfortable with, like, this was a smart, measured approach, and here are finally the results that we've been wanting and needing to see. So it's an incredible amount of pressure on Dubas, and you're right. Like, your legacy is remembered ultimately by the successes you have, right? Like, Nick, more than anyone, could speak to that. Had the Rangers not won Game 7 versus Vancouver, we look at the whole Mark Messier era in New York differently. But you guys are Stanley Cup champs, and that becomes the defining, oh, yeah, Mark Messier, he brought the cup to New York after 54 years. That's the narrative, period. And we're sort of waiting now for that last chapter to be written for the Toronto Maple Leafs with Kyle Dubas. And look, the pieces are in place. Whether they're a good enough team to get past Tampa in the first round is yet to be seen. And it's really unfortunate. If they were in any of the other 3 divisions, I really would love the Leafs' chances. And it's more of a 50-50, situation and scenario going up against a very good Tampa team. But I think having this conversation, guys, in 10 days after the trade deadline, will have a much better sense. Like, I just think there's still pieces to be put in place, not just for the Leafs, but for Tampa, for Boston, and for a lot of the other contending teams.
We're talking to David Amber, host of Rogers Monday Night Hockey on Sportsnet. Is Matthew Knies, to you, a non-starter? Is he the one piece that Kyle has to maybe protect his legacy as someone that, even if he did lose his job, he didn't selfishly do it?
That's such a tough one, Kyper, and I'm not going to pretend to know Matthew Knies inside and out. I see the highlights that we're seeing go out on Twitter. We know the scouting report. It's funny. My producer on Monday nights is Dave Azuma, and we're having a Matthew Knies conversation. And, he said the best comparable he can see for Matthew Knies is Chris Kreider. And if you go and you look back, another NCAA player, and stature-wise and skill set-wise, skating-wise, there's a lot of similarities. And if you actually go back and look at their NCAA careers, he's kind of on that trajectory. Imagine if the Leafs go and they trade Matthew Knies for a rental or to get that marquee blue liner, and then we've got to watch 10 years of Matthew Knies scoring 30-plus goals in the NHL. That's a bitter pill to swallow. However, on the other side of the equation is, what if Matthew Knies gets you that defender and the Leafs go to a Stanley Cup final or whatever the case may be? Yeah. There's great value in that. So I could see that being the blue chip they don't want to give away. And maybe one of the most difficult things that's happened to the Leafs this year, guys, is Nick Robertson, not developing, showcasing himself to be that bona fide scorer in the NHL and then getting hurt again. That might have been the chip, the blue chip you could play to get that stud defenseman forward, whatever the case may be. And I guess obviously Nick Robertson, that's not going to garner what a Matthew Knies would garner at this point. So, I'm not really answering your question. I think you have to take a measured approach and you have to sort of see what's offered. But to me, if you can somehow fix the lineup, get it to where you need it to be, and hold Matthew Knies, that's obviously would be priority number one.
Yeah, it's so true that the Robertson thing is such a forgotten asset. That was the thing. No one's ever been more right than Treyko saying trade him the day after he scored 2 in the newspaper. Looking at the wild card spot in the East DA, it's rammed right now. Right now, the Islanders in Florida in Pittsburgh, Detroit, Washington, Buffalo, Ottawa, if you like. What are your thoughts on what's going to shake out there, and really do any of those teams have a chance anyway?
Oh my God! Well, it's so fun. First of all, it's really exciting because the 3 top teams in the Metro, the 3 top teams in the Atlantic, they're locked and loaded. The matchups are almost, seemingly pretty close to being locked and loaded as well. So there's not a lot of drama there. But this chase for the last 2 spots, you might even throw the Senators in there if they end up using the Zaitsev cap space and they'd have to go crazy and go 19-7 or something stupid like that to have a shot. But, they're not out of that conversation yet. It's funny, though. Like, every time I start getting hot for a team, I was working with you Tuesday, Justin, and I was like, yeah, this Buffalo team, I really like the makeup, blah, blah. And then, within 2 minutes, they're down 5-0, right? Like, they're not consistent enough. But there's flaws on every single team. I don't know who's in the driver's seat. You listen to Elliot Friedman, and he'll say, well, the math isn't good for this team or the math isn't good for that team because of games played. True, but you have to also like the team.
Right.
Florida, the math isn't good, but at their best, Florida might be the best of that group at their best. And they're about to get, Duclair back and Sam Bennett, and, they're trending in the right direction. I'll never bet against Sidney Crosby in Pittsburgh because we've been fooled before. Oh, they're over the hill, da-da-da. We talk about the pressure in Toronto. There's pressure in Pittsburgh, too. Yes, they've won the Cup, this group collectively, a few times, but, it's a new ownership group, and they went all in, re-signing Rust and Malkin and everyone else, and they ran back the band, and now here they are, teetering on a playoff position. So you could talk about pressure being in a number of different markets. So it's wide open. It's fruitless for me to even say here are the two teams I think are going to make it because it changes on a day-to-day basis. If it's going to come down to goaltending, the one thing I'll say is the Islanders, advantage Islanders. I think Sorokin is, clearly the best goaltender in that group of teams seeking out a wild card spot. But again, the math isn't great for the Islanders. They played the most games. So what's fun, guys, is every game's important. Every game is meaningful now for those 7 teams. So it makes it for a really exciting final, 6-week stretch of the season.
Listen, I've worked with you long enough to know that you just cheer for whoever will bring you the highest ratings.
You know me well, Kyper. That is true.
So is there ever a good thing if we start in April and there's no Sid or no Ovi in game ones?
If we finish in June with a Connor and an Austin, we're okay. Listen,
good answer.
Listen, Crosby's a sell, just like McKinnon's a sell, certainly out east, and OV, he's a sell as well. But at the end of the day, Kyper, it's been 30 years, and who would have thought after the run of the Montreal Canadiens, the Edmonton Oilers, the Calgary Flames, and all of those cups in the late 70s, 80s, and into the 1993 that we'd be sitting here 3 decades later saying, oh, my God, the Cup hasn't been in Canada in 30 years. I never assumed this drought would go on this long. And I know you guys all laughed at me, I gave you guys a lot of good material as I'd be kind of on the edge of my seat with every Canadian team game. But it's true. I am kind of ready now for the Cup to be back in Canada. I know that sounds so whatever cheerleadery, but it's the fact of the matter. I think it'd be really cool. I don't care if it's the Winnipeg Jets at this point. It'd be pretty cool to see a Canadian team, a fan base that is passionate and cares so much and has an insatiable appetite for hockey, be able to sort of hoist the Stanley Cup and that fan base celebrate. And I think it'll be really cool. I don't know if that's going to happen. It'd be great if it could happen in the next few years while we still have the NHL national rights, But I think it'd be phenomenal. Imagine if we got somehow an Edmonton-Toronto final. That story writes itself. It would just be sensational. So I'm still cheerleading Kyper, as you know, and it's good for all of us. It really is.
Well, yeah, and on that Canadian front, who do you like best? Do you like the Albertan teams, Edmonton and Calgary? You think they've got a good shot?
I don't know. I mean, Calgary has not won more than 3 games in a row all season.
Is that right?
Good teams find a way to rattle off 5, 6, 7 wins in a row. I don't know what to make of Calgary. The volume of shots, like we saw again last night, 50-plus shots, that's great. But do they have finishers? They've really missed Matthew Tkachuk more than I thought they would. And Jonathan Huberdeau, it seems like he's maybe turning the corner, but he hasn't been that 115-point guy from a year ago, clearly. So, and the bottom line there is they haven't gotten Vezina quality goaltending. So it's hard for me to be sitting here and saying, yeah, Calgary. No, Edmonton, just like Toronto, I think there's a fair amount of pressure on Ken Holland and that management group to add something. And just like the Leafs, you could have asked me the question off the top, what do you think you always need to do? And I give you the same spiel. I'm a TSA home, like a stud defenseman, a lockdown type guy, or maybe in their case, an Erik Karlsson, whatever. They need some help on the blue line, some depth on the blue line. And I think if they go out and somehow find a way to make that happen, I really like Edmonton's chances, and maybe even more so than the Leafs' chances. Not that I think Edmonton's a better team, but I think the path to the Stanley Cup is far, far easier through the Pacific Division potentially than it is through the Atlantic Division.
DA, I want you to know that if it ends up being Carolina versus Seattle in the final, I'm watching you. I'll still watch you.
You're gonna watch me that I don't do anything crazy, is what you mean? Yeah, that wouldn't be ideal, Kyper. And I don't want you to hear that you're cheering for that. That would be so Kyper to be cheering for that, my demise like that. No, it would. Listen, there's great storylines. There's great players on every team. I said it earlier. Like, I just think it would be cool, even if we just get a Canadian team to the final. It ramps up the overall interest in our country, and I think it would be a really cool storyline to see play out.
I'm with you, pal. All right, listen, we're going to let you go. Great stuff today. Always appreciate it. Thanks for joining us, Dave.
Yeah, guys, anytime. Thanks for having me on, and enjoy the games tonight, fellas.
Thanks, DA. Appreciate it.
David Amber, host of Rogers Monday Night Hockey on Sportsnet.
What a guy.
Yeah, it's interesting to talk about Kyle Dubas, get David's thoughts on where he goes from here. But, I mean, I don't think we should put all of it on Kyle Dubas here. When you're making a decision, and it's got to be right up to Brendan Shanahan and, depending on his relationship with the board. But there's just no way Kyle Dubas does anything without the support of Brendan Shanahan or the stamp of approval to go get an Ekholm or a Gavrikov or anything else out there that could legitimately be a top four, to give up another first rounder or a potential Matthew Knies. That has to fall on Brendan Shanahan here as well.
And it's funny because we tend to think of other teams and trust that their presidents are involved. I think that Jeff Gorton's got a lot to say in what happens in Montreal, and I think that Brian Burke has a hand in things in Pittsburgh, and go on and on.
McPhee in Vegas
and Rutherford in Vancouver. Like, these guys are involved. So to think that Shanahan is just sitting there and being like, "What are we going to do, Kyle?" I think it's pretty unlikely.
I could not disagree more with Amber about wanting to see a team win the Stanley Cup, Canadian team.
Would you rather see Winnipeg win it or Vancouver win it than whatever I say next?
The only way I want the cup back in Canada is down Yonge Street, baby.
Yes.
And this is why you're going to have a cult following after the show.
Misery loves company.
Mm-hmm.
Let's all be miserable. You can't have one happy team
because
in the NHL in Canada.
No, because as a Leaf fan, Kyper, you have to understand that
I'm
all
speaking
those
from your perspective.
But from all those fans of all those other teams, they would probably enjoy getting to throw it in Leaf fans' face more than they would actually enjoy winning the cup. That's as big a part of winning the cup is to throw it in front of Leaf fans' face.
It's a Saturday night, Toronto in Vancouver. Like, any Canadian win against the Leafs.
Yeah, people in Toronto loved when Mark Scheifele said nothing better than beating the Leafs on air, because it just confirmed what they already knew.
Well, that was a big thing for Leaf fans. But it's just, I usually will root for the biggest Canadian star that's left, outside, I guess, Connor McDavid. But I always root for Sid. Whenever he was taking his runs, I'd always, root for the Blackhawks with Taves. I always was kind of
maintain your Canadian status.
Yeah.
I root for whoever had consumed the most maple syrup per capita. That team.
I hate when they're like, "Oh, you got to cheer for a Canadian team because there's, they're from Canada."
Yeah.
It's like, no.
I actually think that's a straw man. DA is the only person I've ever heard say that I think that was serious. I don't think anyone believes you should actually root for another Canadian team.
I think it's a certain faction of fans. Like my mom.
Pay close attention.
Like my mom.
Oh, good. I'm just happy to see someone get it.
I can guarantee she was cheering for the Habs when they went to the final.
Oh, gross.
It's like that kind of level of fandom.
Yeah.
Do you believe that we're at the point now, though, that let's say Winnipeg goes on a run here and gets to a final, that the rest of the country would rally around that?
Who, Winnipeg?
No. Yeah, say Winnipeg.
No chance.
No chance.
Well,
I think Winnipeg Jets fans are very mad at me, and I would just like to say that I think they're fine.
They're okay.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Well, everyone, they think I'm hard on them and say they're terrible and whatever because I think that they're fine. They're going to make the playoffs and then lose.
Let's look at it this way. Can you guys picture?
Are they in jeopardy of missing the playoffs?
No, the Jets.
I don't know.
No, they're solidly in the playoff picture.
Where? 70?
Second in the Central, I think.
I mean, we watched them lose to the Islanders, and they're on a bit of a tailspin here, are they not?
4-6 in their last 10. They have 71 points. Minnesota in the wild card is 67. And, and Calgary's there at 65 at the wild.
I mean, we're talking about 6 points.
They're not in.
Jets are making the playoffs.
Between in and out
They
is.
I think they're making the playoffs.
But it's not. It's not a given.
No.
It's not a slam dunk.
It is not.
Between their spot and a team that's out is what, 5 points?
Yes.
6 points?
Yeah.
Let me ask.
They're 4 points ahead of the Wild right now for wild card.
I mean, there's some hockey to be played. And if we look at the Western Conference guys, I mean, okay, all season long, we're like Boston, and then Tampa looks really good. And Toronto's looking really good. But like, who's jumping out of you in the Western Conference right now as wow, like they're deep?
I'm waiting on the Oilers. I'm waiting on the Oilers. I know. There's really nobody. Vegas in first in that division is not great.
They're the best team in the West with 73 points. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 teams in the Eastern Conference with more than
Dallas lets Chicago come in last night and
take their lunch money. They've got 2 wins in the last 10. They're in first.
All right. Before we go to break, let me just put this to you, okay? Picture the Leafs go on a deep run this year.
Yeah.
Is the rest of the country be like, let's rally around the Leafs? There is 0% chance of that happening.
No, but what we do know, whether they're rallying or not,
they're watching.
They will watch.
Oh, they're watching.
The numbers would be off the charts.
Hate watch,
every time
love watch.
We're like, game 4, 5, 6 would be like 5-6 million people, which is a huge number. Like Hockey Night in Canada, I think averages maybe 1 million, 1.2 on average every Saturday night.
Yeah.
Like that's 4 or 5 times in a first round for the Leafs. Like nobody moves the needle like that. And that's why probably they get the attention that they get.
They might even keep us on the air if they went on a run.
That's I don't know if it's about cheering or not cheering, but Sammy, they'll be watching.
Oh yeah. And please God, let it happen.
Please win.
Please win. Anyways.
All right. Okay, we're going to take a quick break. Mike Rupp, NHL Network analyst. He's always great when we welcome him on board here. He's coming up after the break. Wherever you are watching or listening, we are also glad you're on board. Give us a rating and review. Hit the like button, all that good stuff. We'll take a quick break, and we're back with the Rupper.
is Real Kyper and Bourne on Sportsnet 590 The Fan.
All right, let's get right into it. Mike Rupp, NHL Network analyst, former NHLer, Stanley Cup champion, does it all. Thanks for coming back on our show there, Rupper.
What's up, fellas? Glad to be back. Thanks for having me back.
A few things have changed. The Leafs with a very big trade, and all of a sudden there's a jolt in this city that has people believing that they just got a lot closer to Tampa and Boston. And we're just wondering earlier on in the show, is it enough, Rupper? And your thoughts, first of all, of the trade and what it does, and then we'll get into what's left.
Yeah, I love the trade. I mean, I think that was a very astute trade by Kyle Dubas, and I think you get flexibility in your roster because of it. Ryan O'Reilly's, he's obviously a special player, and we've seen him come aboard here and fit in nicely with Tavares and Marner, and that game the other night was incredible. I mean, even his empty net goal was pretty incredible, to be honest with you. Like, he's provided offense, but I think the bigger thing with Ryan O'Reilly is that he's one of those players. I think we're getting few of them in the league where they can influence games in other ways. It doesn't have to be the points. I mean, it's great if it is, but he's the guy that I'm assuming at some point we're going to see him playing third-line center to see how that is, see how that works. They're going to need to use him in different roles, and he can contribute. I mean, he doesn't have to make the score sheet to be a difference maker in the game. So, Nola Chari, I think some of the same things, obviously on a little bit of a different level. He has experience. He's kind of a specialty player as far as the bottom six. Those are what the Leafs needed. They went out and they got it. So is it enough? I mean, that lineup's pretty darn scary right now. You'd like to add some depth pieces if you're able to, as far as, I don't know, maybe on the back end, maybe another depth forward. But then again, if you're talking about starting the playoffs right now with this group, I mean, this team's got a great chance.
So, Rupper, they've got a lot of talent and a lot of options, right? Like when you sit there and just look at the names, you're like, oh, you can mix this up in a bunch of different ways. How much do you think, if at all, ego plays into their decision-making? Like, would Tavares have hurt feelings about the wing, or would it bother Ryan O'Reilly to play third-line center? Or how much accounting for those sort of things on a team do you have to do when building an optimal lineup?
I think that's huge with any team that you look into that. I would have to assume, and from what I've heard over the years playing against a guy like John Tavares, he's not an ego-driven guy. Like, he's going to do whatever is needed, and that's what I just said about Ryan O'Reilly too. So, you know, if O'Reilly goes in there and he's got to play wing, if he has to play right wing, left wing, whatever the position is, I mean, he's down, and so is Tavares, I think. So I don't feel like that's an issue. This is one thing with this team that I think has been pretty incredible, is that the big guys, the star players, even to look at the last couple of years, Austin Matthews, 5-on-5 game, competing for pucks, stripping the guys at pucks, being more difficult to play against on the other side of the puck. Mitch Marner, he's great in those kind of positions too, and blocking shots and put himself on the line. I mean, that's one thing that this group has done a really good job of, is their stars don't seem like they want to do whatever they need to do, right? And I don't think every team's built like that. I've been on teams, not just even the desire and the want to do something different, or the willingness to do something different, the ability to do it. It's a unique kind of blend. You got to look at all those things, and I think that Kyle Dubas did that.
We're talking to Mike Rupp, NHL Network analyst and Stanley Cup champion, and you go back to your Stanley Cup championship or others that we've seen, it was always somebody on the blue line, big, strong, kind of shutdown guy. The Leafs lost Jake Muzzin mid-October. There doesn't appear to be that type of guy on that blue line. How important is it that they find someone in the next week, or is this group good enough to do it collectively?
It's going to have to look a little, untraditional, I think, if you're going to do it with the group it is now. But, I mean, you collectively can do it. I think it's just important to, come playoff time, we used to always joke around about it in different levels. I'm sure you did too, Kyper, where, like, there'd be playoff heroes, and there used to be back in the day where I felt like guys during the regular season, maybe let's just say, for an example, a guy never dropped the gloves in the regular season, and all of a sudden the postseason he's running his mouth, he's yapping, he's in your face, and it's like you can turn into a playoff hero, right? And not to that degree, but the degree where we have seen defensemen who are average defensemen that in the playoffs all of a sudden look incredible. It's hard to get to the middle of the ice. I know Jacob Trouba's taken some beatings as far as by different fan bases the last couple seasons, saying he's overpaid, he's this, he's that. I'll tell you what, you watched the Rangers in the playoffs last year, that guy was not giving up the middle of the ice, and he was an absolute force. He was worth every bit of whatever the $9 million or $8 million, whatever it is he makes. It's about just having that willingness to get in guys' way in the middle of the ice and secure that, make teams play on the perimeter. And I think anybody can do that. It certainly helps when you're a bigger body, but I've also seen players that are really tough to play against and that are smaller size. You just got to play a little differently come playoff time.
Well, one guy who's played a lot during the playoffs is Patrick Kane. You mentioned the New York Rangers a second ago. Larry Brooks had an article pairing them up again, that dream is not dead. Is he the right answer for them? Does he help them a whole bunch? What do you think about the potential for him to go to the Rangers?
I mean, clearly he helps every team, and the way he's playing right now, I mean, Patty Kane seems to be a little PO'd about different things right now.
Mm-hmm.
He's showing everybody that he can play right now, no matter what situation his hip's in, no matter whatever you think how his season has gone. I mean, he's been an absolute force lately, and he'd help every team. The Rangers are pretty well set. I love the moves they made. I'm actually a big fan of the Tyler Mott move that they made. Their fourth line has been kind of non-existent as far as contributing on a nightly basis in some facet. So now you've got that fourth line that's shaken out a little bit more. But I think if you're going to look in one player that's been very versatile all season long, Jimmy Vesey's been really good. He's been really good in playing multiple different roles for this team. But, I mean, if you can swing a Patty Kane and remove kind of Vesey from the top six and put Patty Kane up there, and line be Barclay Goodrow centering, which has slotted him appropriately. He was in the top six before they went and got Tarasenko, which this is a much more comfortable spot, I think, for Goodrow. And then you've got Tyler Mott and Jimmy Vesey for fourth line. All of a sudden, I mean, you got a loaded four lines. So, it would certainly help, just like it would every other team. But I even right now, standing pat, I think the Rangers got a good chance in the East.
Hey, Rupper, is Pat Kane's play the last couple of weeks enough for you to be convinced that he is going somewhere? He wants to play. He doesn't care where. I mean, is that what we're seeing out of him? Or is there a part of you that still says, I don't know, maybe he could shut it down like his buddy Taves just did?
No, I mean, I think that I guess it depends what that asking price is. You know what I mean? What is the asking price? Because that's been, I think, a lot of teams have been a little hesitant, not knowing if Pat Kane was going to be able to go through the gauntlet of the playoffs. Like, he's playing great right now. It doesn't necessarily answer that question. It's more what the asking price is. I wonder with his kind of comments after the Tarasenko trade, I wonder if he went to the Hawks instead. I'll go to New York, and the asking price was too high with some of those question marks, and that didn't get done. And it's just, for me, there's a ton of interest. But I feel like, Dallas has been rumored a number of times. But I feel like if that was a destination for Patrick Kane, I feel like that would have been done already, right? Like, I wonder if he wanted to go to the Rangers and, maybe listen, no insider information. I'm just trying to read between the lines. It's like maybe he's sitting there and trying to answer those questions right now. It's weird. And then I don't know from the Hawks standpoint where this comes into play, but if you're Patty Kane, you're holding all the cards, obviously. But how about if you just went and said, "This is the team I want to go to. Make it happen, or I'm not going anywhere, and you're not going to get anything for me."
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting how this is playing out. I think there's a lot of things that are happening behind closed doors that we're not all privy to, and maybe someday we will be.
Before I let you back in, JB, just that thought that you're, that those words kind of resonated with me. That you may not get anything at all. Are the Blackhawks, and maybe to a lesser extent Kyle Davidson, going to take some heat here? That this organization has been circling the drain the past 4 or 5 years. Like, everybody saw this coming, and yet you left your 2 prized possessions out there in a position where you could get squat for them.
Yeah, and I think the unfortunate situation with Jonathan Taves hasn't helped this for Patrick Kane, and the unfortunate situation with how management handled Alex DeBrincat doesn't help this situation. They didn't get the return they should get for a 23, 24-year-old 2-time 40-goal scorer when that trade went to Ottawa. It didn't seem like the return was extreme priority for them at that time. And now all of a sudden, if you're Patrick Kane and you wanted to go somewhere in the world, which again, this is just me filling in the blanks. I might be dead wrong here, but it just if I'm Patrick Kane, I'm like, and then publicly, the part that gets me publicly is how this is all in Pat's control. What he wants to do, we'll facilitate what he wants to do. It's frustrating to me because I feel like, not that they're trying to villainize Kane and Taves through this, but they're not taking any responsibility of it. And that's not a cool spot to put these guys. These guys are going to have statues. These guys are going to have the jerseys up in the rafters and in Chicago. And I don't know. I wonder if we'll ever know what happened here, but I feel like it's a mismanaged situation.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Hey, we've been talking about the East race a little bit. I know you spend a lot of time watching the Eastern Conference. What are your thoughts on right now Florida, Pittsburgh, and Washington? All, 2 of those teams probably missed playoffs with some real superstars in the mix. What are your thoughts on those 3 teams?
Washington, I'm really concerned about. Obviously, for the circumstances, not having Obi. Just from the hockey standpoint, it's one of the best goal scorers in the world right now, and they were without him, so they've been in a little bit of a funk. So having him back, we'll see if that can give them a jolt. Their decors misses John Carlson immensely. I don't see the Caps. If there's one of those 3 teams that I feel most secure to say they're not going to get in, it's probably them. Mm-hmm. It's interesting to see how Brian McClellan's going to handle this. Like, how do we? Because remember, he came out and said, as long as we've got Obi and he's chasing down Wayne's record, like, we're going to do everything we can. I don't know. I wonder if this is a time where maybe they turn into sellers in the next few days here, and then they try to recoup and reevaluate and go into next season and try to change things up. The other 2 teams, I've been impressed with Florida. For the most part, after the All-Star break, I think Matthew Tkachuk kind of set that tone in Game 1 after the All-Star break. They're interesting. Bob's playing really good, and we've been waiting on that for a little while now. Pittsburgh's in trouble. Pittsburgh, it's not the big guys. The big guys are doing it. The big guys are playing well. Big guys are getting it done. And I don't know. It irks me because I was a career bottom 6 guy, 4th-line guy, and I take pride in, like, the little things of the game and what your role is. I'm not sure the bottom 6 in Pittsburgh know what their role is. And they're not really – the big guys aren't getting any help. And that doesn't mean scoring goals even. That means, like, hey, let's go out and get on the forecheck. Let's forecheck hard. Let's finish our hits. Let's block shots. Like, that to me right now is in complete disarray, and Ron Hextall's got a lot of question marks, and everyone's waiting like he's got to shake this group up, but they're very limited in what they can do. They don't really have expiring contracts. They don't really have they don't want to sell off their future. So I mean, this is a team that's pot committed right now to win now, but they don't really have many assets to make a move. So it'll be very interesting to see how they handle the deadline.
Next few games could tell a lot with the Washington Capitals. Would you go after a guy like Orlov if you're, say, Kyle Dubas?
I'd love to meet you, Orlov. Yeah, I think that guy. I mean, he would be. He's a guy that could do a little bit of everything, and he's got that squirreliness where every once in a while he'll just come across and throw a hip check into you, or he'll keep you honest.
We'd love Squirrely up here.
I love Squirrely too. I love Dmitry Orlov. That actually would be incredible if he was able to get to Toronto.
Well, that's the fantasy here. The other ones that we kind of kick around are like Matthias Ekholm, Carson Soucy, just searching for someone. How integral do you think it is? The Leafs are going to try right now with a D-core that doesn't have that physical edge. Last year they had Muzzin and Lyubushkin. It's kind of a debate around Toronto because their goals against is pretty good. But is it that different in playoffs, or could they still have success without it?
I think they could still have success.
Mm-hmm.
But, a lot of that's due to them playing a pretty dominant style where they have the puck a lot, so it kind of takes away from defending. But, heaven forbid they get into a game or a period or series where they've got to find ways to get the puck back and make parts of the ice more difficult. That's where I think it'll be challenging. So it would never hurts to have a guy that it's almost equivalent to I always thought on the forecheck. You, from game one of a series, you finish every hit on their defenseman, because by game four, not necessarily, yes, they could be tired and wear them down, but if they know they're rushing plays, now they're not putting the puck on the tape of their winger, right? And now you're forced to turn over. Same thing with the middle of the ice. If you just keep getting in the way, you don't have to take anybody's head off. Just get in their way in the middle of the ice. Get in the way in the middle of the ice. Next thing you know, maybe guys aren't cutting in the middle of the ice. They're staying on the outside. And that's why I think you almost get like a deterrent as far as a physical player that'll protect that on the blue line.
All right, Rupper, we really appreciate your time, man. Thanks for doing this.
Anytime, fellas. Take care.
Thanks so much.
Mike Rupp, NHL Network. We'll get him back on when everything's locked.
Yeah.
Hey, it might be interesting. I think there's a lot of – I think the market's a little inflated right now. Prices need to come down. They usually do.
So hard, though, when you've mentally committed, okay, we need a D-man. Let's say that Dubas right now is like, we're going to get a D-man.
Yes.
We're going to pay this price. And then you head towards deadline week and you got your eye on Orlov and Ekholm and whoever else. And you're not guaranteed that they're going to be there. Someone else bids before you get the chance to do it.
How early do you want to pull the trigger?
Early, right. Because everyone's like, yeah, prices may come down closer to the deadline, but there may not be the items you want at
I got to think that had a lot to do with getting Ryan O'Reilly.
I agree. You would rather overpay for a thing you need than get a good deal on something you don't need.
Lose out.
Yeah. Well, let that be a lesson to your shopping too.
All
people.
right, we finished touching on the blue line with.
You mentioned Lou. The contract that he signed just had a second time it got traded with assets to get rid of it. So
that Zaitsev deal.
Oof.
Yeah.
That one won't go in his Hall of Fame plaque, that contract.
They paid a ton to get rid of it. There's only one more year in Zaitsev. What was it?
This year,
4.5.
This year and next at 4.5.
Yeah.
They paid a second for it.
But they paid
a second to get rid of it.
I thought something else. I thought it was 2 picks.
Wasn't
it
it a
2 picks?
fourth?
I think it was a
fourth.
second and a fourth, I think.
Oh, my Lord.
To get rid of it. To get 1 year of Zaitsev.
Now there's a buzz out there that, okay, why did they need to do this now? And what's coming?
Well, that's what the
big
fans
thing.
think is like, now are they going to spend it on Jacob Chikrin?
Someone mentioned would they go after Parayko in St. Louis?
Mm-hmm.
But I think he's in year 1 of 8, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he might be in year 0. Like the contract's till 2030. So wherever it is,
and
6.5 million.
I think it might be even a no trade, probably.
Yeah,
there would be a major.
Maybe this is why it's in.
It's open right now. You think it's open right now?
I think maybe the contract starts and kicks in on July 1st, and that's why his name is coming up. Something like that. I can look this up.
Yeah, look it up so we can be accurate. But
yes.
And he's where's he from? He's from Alberta, is he not?
He was born in St. Albert, Alberta.
Ooh, Edmonton might.
He is in the first year of a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8-year contract at 6.5 per. Signed on September 1st,
Which does have no trade protection. Starting, the no trade clause starts on July 1st, 2028.
There you go.
That's a Armstrong thing. He doesn't do many no trade deals.
Yeah, I don't think he does signing bonuses either, and I think that had a big thing to do with Petrangelo going away. That he wanted those guys like upfront money.
Yeah. I can't say I blame him.
Hey, he doesn't like money.
But you were saying, like, are the Sens able to add a big name?
Listen, they're trying to sell
a
team at a hard number. When you bring in $30-40 million contracts, it changes
the
assets
price and liabilities.
Yes.
It's a thing you owe.
I would hope that whoever's trying to buy this team could say, can you just keep it to pencils and paper clips right now?
Buy the stuff you need, not the stuff you want until we get the team. Yeah, and I understand that, particularly being maybe Dorian's not the guy for the next regime. But if it's a good contract, that becomes an asset. If it's Chychrun, you feel pretty good about it.
They have $4.9 million in cap space now.
Who's that, Ottawa?
Yep.
Can I also just say that anyone who's buying a franchise should be buying it with the assumption they're going to be spending to the cap. $82.5 million. You can't compete in the NHL with such a low cap that's been flat for years. Assume you're spending the full salary cap.
Listen, it's these are now billion-dollar assets. Moving forward,
you better be spending
the number's a buh.
Yeah.
So you need many
yeah
to play, and you should not be scared of an $80 million, $90 million, $100 million in what, 4 years, 5 years? 110, 120, what do you care?
No, I agree. And that's why, adding a contract to me is not like, oh, it's this liability. It's like, it's all $82.5 million. Any way you look at it.
I like what Chicago's doing, though, buying picks. Like, that's kind of what the Leafs were doing that in their rebuild. They now, for the 2023 draft, before they've traded Patrick Kane, they have 2 first-rounders, 3 second-rounders, 2 third-rounders.
Well, hey,
so that's a lot of draft capital to take some shots.
How about the St. Louis Blues? 3 first-round picks this year and 2 third-round picks. Next year, they got a first, 2 seconds, 2 fourths. Like, they have picks, brother.
All right. We're going to get to Billy Guerin after the break.
Yes.
General manager of the Minnesota Wild. He'll join us, and we'll tee up the Minnesota Wild and their push to make the playoffs. And a lot of people thought they'd be on the outside looking in by now, but he's got them right there in the race. Billy Guerin after the break. You're watching and listening to Real Kyper and Bourne.
is Real Kyper and Bourne on Sportsnet 590 The Fan.
All right, let's just jump right into it. Billy Guerin, former NHLer, Stanley Cup champion, general manager of the Minnesota Wild, join us now. Hey, where are you finding time right now to talk to us?
I just like you guys. That's it. Always have.
You're excited because you got a fourth round pick from
Kip, I didn't always like you, actually.
we had a few run-ins. You really pissed me off in Jersey. If you want to talk,
not when you were taking runs at me. I didn't like it.
I was just a little guy too. You were the big stud.
Yeah, right.
We really appreciate your time, man, because we know it is really busy, and any time you're on the phone, if it ends up being a blockbuster or a fourth round pick, which you guys ended up doing, picking up a little bit of Ryan O'Reilly's contract, a fourth rounder, and I think in year 2025. Billy, have you got in mind who that is right now? Are you excited about the pick?
I have no clue who that's going to be. But you know what? I mean, hey, listen, we just try to, just like everybody else in the league, you try to have good asset management, and you know what? Sometimes, you have to pay a little or go a roundabout way of gaining assets, and that was one way to do it. And we've seen teams do it in the past, and we feel like we just had enough cap space where we could do something like that, and it wouldn't prevent us from doing anything else. And we have great ownership, and our owner Craig Leopold's willing to let us spend some of his money to do that.
No question that the challenges are still there in a flat cap. Are we going to see a lot more of that in the next week?
I think you could. There are quite a few teams out there with space, and I think it all, in the end, it all comes down to, I guess the willingness of ownership to do that. And, like I said, our owner's been extremely generous, and, we're fortunate to be able to do that. But I think it's a smart play by some teams, and, draft picks are very valuable these days, and it's the way a lot of teams are building their future. So I do. I think you could see it even more.
I don't. I want to say, through my mathematics, and I'm not sure if you want to say or not, but maybe $100,000 of real cash for a fourth rounder. Am I in the ballpark?
That was about 70.
70. Okay, I'm in the ballpark then. Not bad.
Not bad.
You are. Not bad.
We've been talking a little bit about the Central Division today and the Western Conference, and looking at it, like, you guys have won 3 games in a row here. The teams you're chasing in the Central, Dallas and Winnipeg, are kind of not faring wonderfully these days. How much does your current position inspire you going into the next week or so to say, okay, we've got a chance to, not just make playoffs, there's a chance of the division still?
Yeah, I mean, you know what? We just have to keep focusing on, the kind of a day-by-day mentality.
Yeah.
I mean, we all see the standings. It's such a strong division. Anything can happen. 2 weeks ago, we were not doing well, and now we've won 3 in a row. You just look at other teams, and it's just so up and down that you have to, no matter what happens in a game, you have to brush it off and move on to the next one. It's almost like a really long, playoff series. You just play, take the result, and move on, whether it's a win or a loss, because you can't sit there and worry about it.
Do you anticipate in the next week of being active or doing something significant?
You know what? Active, yes. Significant. I mean, I think anytime you make a trade, it's significant, just because you're trying to improve your team one way or another. How active we'll be, I couldn't really tell you. I think it depends on the market and what teams are asking for certain players, and you don't want to just do things to say you're active on deadline day. You want to make sure that you're really helping your team. And, that's that's kind of the way that we've approached things.
I was trying to be polite because you did beat me up on occasion, but like Matt Dumba significant. Matt Dumba significant. Like, are you willing to hold on to him and let this thing play through, knowing that there's a expiring contract?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, Matt's a big part of this team and this organization. He has been for a number of years, and and he's honestly lately he's been playing some of his best hockey. So I mean, my job as a general manager is not to make our team weaker; it's to make it better. Mm-hmm. And I've always just been completely honest with any media I talk to, any fans that I talk to. If I have an opportunity to make our team better, I will. But the last thing I want to do, especially right now, is make our team worse.
So what is that process like for you right now? Obviously, I think we're 8 days away from the deadline here. Is it a daily thing where you're in conversation with other GMs and saying, okay, if this is available on this date, what's your workload like on the telephone these days?
It's been pretty busy lately, but, I think a lot of the time it really leads up to the day. Yeah. And it's a lot of information gathering. I don't mind getting deals done earlier, but if you're acquiring, you kind of have to you got to deal with the team who has a player. And, like I said, I could say, it's pretty slow and we hang up the phone and it gets really busy. So you got to take everything I say with a grain of salt, because if something, comes over the line, I'll do it.
In terms of Marc-Andre Fleury right now, where do you see his game as it shapes up to the critical games down the line here?
I think Flower's fine. I mean, this is honestly, he had an off night against Colorado last week, and but you know what? I mean, I know this guy really well. I think the whole hockey world does, and one or two games off, he's going to be back. And he's going to get one of our two games this week on the road, and I think him and Philip Gustafson have played some really good hockey for us lately. They've, like I said, outside of that Colorado game from Flower, he's been real solid for us.
Yeah, you know what? We were talking before you're on too about some of the moves that have happened in the division there for you guys. One of them being Ryan O'Reilly. The St. Louis Blues have kind of taken a little bit of a step back. You guys are playing the Maple Leafs coming up here in a couple of days. What are your thoughts on what a guy like that does at this point of his career, coming to an organization like the Maple Leafs?
Well, I think from the outside looking in, he wants to win,
right?
And he's had great success in St. Louis, and I'm sure everything there was great, but whenever you have an opportunity, to win and be on a really good team, championship caliber team, in my mind, you do it. And you know what, I think Ryan O'Reilly's a winner at heart. And I think Kyle made a great move and, brought a guy who's, not just a Stanley Cup winner, but a Conn Smythe winner too. This guy's a real deal. So I thought it was a really strong move by Kyle.
We just spoke a little while ago about a flat cap and, the pressure that it puts on you and other general managers. There is some talk, Billy, about maybe the Players Association and Gary Bettman and the league getting together and maybe knocking it up $3 or $4 million opposed to the one expected next year. How important is that for you? What would that mean to your situation in the Minnesota Wild if it was able to go up? How big of a difference would that be?
Huge. Huge. It's big for everybody, but, the situation that we're in with kind of these empty cap hits with the buyouts that we made, it would be really big. But, we're prepared for anything. Either way it goes, we'll be okay. And, we just don't use it as an excuse. We just keep moving on.
Well, one more for me before we let you go, Bill. I just want to get your thoughts on your team right now. What can the Leafs expect from the Wild, the type of game you guys are playing these days? You've won a few in a row. That's a good start.
Yeah, it's a good start. You know what? I think we've been better structurally lately. I think when when we weren't doing as well, we were turning pucks over. We were a little bit out of position and just not really as sharp as we needed to be. So, hopefully we can continue to play well. And hey, look, we know we're coming into the Lions Den, and Toronto's playing really well. They're flying high because of the big trade, and it could be a good game.
Last one for me is Ryan Reeves. When you picked him up, there's a lot of things going on with him in New York, and sometimes not playing probably as much as he would have liked. But what's he meant to you, the Wild, on and off the ice?
Oh, you know what? He's been fantastic. Ever since he walked, in the door, he's been just such a positive influence on everybody. On the ice, he just, we all know what he provides. And, Revo's played real well too. And he's playing with two young guys that they've got some good chemistry together. And in the dressing room, in the community and stuff like that, he's all positive. He's all energy. And he's been had a big impact on our team.
We're looking forward to tomorrow night, Billy. Good luck the rest of the way, man. Always welcomed on our show. Thanks for doing this.
Well, thanks for having me on, guys. I appreciate it. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks for your time.
Billy
Appreciate
Guerin,
it.
general manager of the Minnesota Wild. He made a really hard decision there when he had to buy out Zach Parise and Ryan Suter.
Yeah.
And, a lot of people are saying it's not a great move and they still have something to offer. And, wherever you sat on that, man, you got to respect the guy that just says, I believe this is like he said, this is going to help us.
Yeah.
And, he does it.
We had someone on, it was Kevin Adams a couple days ago talking about how they really didn't want to add someone who would block the development of their young guys like Dylan Cousins. And I think that's an element of why Guerin would do what he did with the Wild is new locker room, new culture, new leadership.
Yes.
You give something else a chance to take root. You give opportunities to other people. Maybe your team's not better because of it now, but you hope that it's better when you need it to be down the road.
I think you nailed it.
Yeah.
Right there for sure. That they had such a strong stranglehold of the room, or sometimes the decisions maybe somewhere, somehow, in terms of maybe even on or off the ice, play, dictate. Sometimes those loud voices, could sometimes paralyze a dressing room.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that is particularly the case with Parise and Suter there.
Yeah.
But, there were rumblings for sure.
Yeah, and even with that, just like someone who could be a potential leader might just be inclined to defer to the guys who've been here and not want to make any decisions or anything. So I'm okay with the idea of trying to be different than you've been.
Well, you mentioned Matt Dumba there. You asked him pretty directly. It's a name that I had completely stopped thinking about for the Leafs. I guess they probably wouldn't trade him with the position they're in, like he mentioned, but that's a tantalizing one. He shoots right, doesn't he? Right?
Yeah.
He's a right D.
Yeah.
I've been liking the Wild though lately. Like we talked about how soft that division is. Depends when you're in it, you call it a hard division. But looking at it like Winnipeg, Dallas, those teams are scuffling. Colorado's still probably going to end up on top, but I like the Wild to end up in one of those 1, 2, 3 spots. I do.
And I think this is a good one for the Leafs because this is a much different type of game than they've been playing. Like you think of the Wild as a much heavier group than you would with the Sabres.
I thought the Leafs really did well there. Their last game in Minnesota.
The Wild also played
the Leafs
tonight.
won, if I'm not mistaken, right?
I think the Leafs beat the Wild.
I think so too.
I can't remember.
But the Wild play tonight.
Oh,
so
do
they're tonight in Columbus, then traveling here on a back-to-back. So, not that the Wild aren't good, but I don't think you'll see the best version of the Wild, which is good.
Sounds like Samsonov will probably get the work on the weekend. I don't think Matt Murray. Did anybody ask the Leafs today about Matt Murray?
I thought we could maybe depend on our intrepid reporter, Real Kyper and Bourne's own Luke Fox.
Yeah, he was sleeping today.
He didn't ask about Matt Murray.
You're going to pin that one right on
Oh,
him,
I
right?
love Luke.
Yeah.
He's my boy.
Yeah.
That's the first question I would ask.
There's no way that you you don't even mention him, or the Leafs don't mention him. Sheldon doesn't mention him.
They just got Ryan O'Reilly. They're playing 5 forwards on a 5-on-3 power play. There's other questions.
Highly unlikely he shows up on the weekend. I would think that now he's in a position to
Next Wednesday against Edmonton.
You want to put him against Connor McDavid?
I want him to play hockey.
Yeah.
I don't care who it's against. I want him to play hockey and show that he can still do the hockey. That's what I would like.
I'm not sure that playing hockey will guarantee that he shows you the things you want to see.
Do we have a
That's a little dark.
Do we have an update on Sandin from Sheldon?
We do have that. Would you like to hear it?
Yes.
Okay, let's play it.
In lieu of
practice was
Murray.
important for him to get through, and then we'll see how he is through the rest of the day. I think at this point, it's probably looking more like another day or two could really benefit him. I think he's not far away, and they were thinking it was really close today, but I think we may take a little more of a cautious approach with him. But we'll see, because at the point now where he's improving dramatically every day, and the strength is not quite where they need it to be. But if that improves significantly and takes a big turn tomorrow, I feel like he could be a possibility. But all that's to say that he's very close, one way or the other.
Do we know? Did we remember seeing him get hurt?
No is my answer to that question.
I remember seeing him doubled over, kind of holding, but I don't know what happened. Maybe it was he got hit. Probably was that he got hit.
Well,
because he's not, we've had the conversation before about him.
Which makes you, again, if you're Kyle and Brendan, I need.
Oh yeah, you need someone else.
I need help.
So I wrote it a week ago, and I'm like, they're getting someone else. And I'm not saying it's going to be a great player, but they're getting someone else. Like Timmins is not the 6 going into playoffs or even the 7.
The only thing I can say is if they even get a player, and I wrote Luke Shen today in my article, that it just won't or could not be enough. I won't say won't, because there's always the hope and a prayer out there, but it will be a shame if this team has left the blue line in a position where there's just nobody, and even Sandin's got the capabilities of playing like 20 minutes a night, but is he going to do it consistently, or is he even going to be there? Like Sandin to me is starting to turn into a Matt Murray, where it's like you can't count on him.
Well, the concern, I forget if we did this on the show or off, but the Travis Dermott thing is the concern. You have a third pair sheltered guy who's kind of, you're waiting for him to take that step and be that guy, and it just doesn't come long enough. And eventually you worry that, boy, it ain't going to come. And injuries are part of Sandin's story at this point. This season, not as much, but.
All right.
Sorry. You'd have to think that they're going to get somebody.
They're getting somebody.
They're getting somebody.
For sure? Promise?
I do.
I'm promising.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for the promise.
I am promising.
I mean, it might be.
There's just no way that they're going to leave it as is.
Turd Ferguson or something on the on the 4th pair, but they're getting someone else.
On the 4th pair.
All right. Pat Kane, 3 points last night. Max Domi, guys, is playing the best hockey I've ever seen him play in the National Hockey League.
So 100% agree. Can I zag on Patrick Kane here? Can I just zag while I'm zigging? I think this reflects poorly on him. That he's got 7 goals in 4 games the second it's become important for him to show that he can still play in the league. What have you been doing the rest of the time? The whole year he's just been kicking rocks and who cares? And now all of a sudden, that's not great.
Listen, I love this guy.
Me too.
And he's
love watching him play.
I'm a big Pat Kane fan, but I can't necessarily argue the optics of that. But I will say that when you're talking about a Pat Kane and everything that he's been through in the organization and constantly looking around, and I don't even know what kind of year it's been with him and the relationship with Kyle Davidson or the organization. How much are they keeping him in the loop? How much is he out of the loop? So there's a lot of factors here.
It's been a hard year.
And he's Pat Kane, one of the best players in the history of the game. So, I mean, it doesn't look great optically.
But it is crazy that he can just be like,
well, And that
Still here.
if it's crazy for you, imagine thinking about trading for him.
Yeah.
So
Oh, they must love it in
It is-
Chicago, though.
really no different of a scenario than we saw last season with Claude Giroux, with one major difference that nobody questioned whether or not Claude Giroux wanted to get traded or play.
Yeah.
Like right now, nobody knows. Even as great as he's playing, and if you want to use the body language as the tell, by all means go ahead. But have we heard from him saying, I want to play and I'm ready to go? Try to
No.
win a Stanley Cup.
They must have made some agreement. Did I read somewhere that today or tomorrow is like the agreed upon date for him to go to Kyle Davidson and say, here's the one place I would like to go?
Like, there are teams out there that don't know where his head's at.
Well, did you see today the Kevin Weeks tweet?
No.
Kevin Weeks tweeted propaganda from Pat Brisson today saying that he has permission to tweet from Brisson that his client, he's not one team interested.
He's a unicorn.
He's a unicorn. There's not one team interested. There's a whole ton of teams who want him. Yada, yada, yada.
Well, yeah, I mean, there could be a ton of teams, and some of them may wait to the summer to sign him.
Yeah. No, fair.
So he might not be wrong that
He's
there is
wrong.
a ton of
Yeah.
teams. It's just how many realistically could be in a position to take his 10.5, and it's workable. There's no question. I'm not even sure if the Rangers are tight, guys.
Yeah.
Even there'd be more teams that could fit in a third team picking up 25%. I'm not even sure if the Rangers are in a position to do that. Like, you look at the way the Leafs have manipulated their salary cap and, sending guys up and down and securing room.
Mm-hmm.
All these, I don't think the Rangers ever had any thought of doing
Needing
that
every
all
penny.
year.
Yeah.
And it might be the difference between them getting Pat Kane or not.
Really? Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah. I mean, right. If you double retain and he's down to 2.6 something and, there's only a portion of the year left and you don't have to have a ton of room, but it is interesting that.
And will he come to
that's that
Canada, Edmonton, Toronto? Will he? He's got a young family.
He's not chasing cups. We've discussed that too. It's an element of it. The Rangers' top six should be really fun with him in it, though. I can tell you that.
Well, he really left it open that he will go to New York. He did.
Oh, yeah.
You don't say that without having a little bit of a message
Yeah.
in it.
I mean, I sure hope it happens. It'd be fun to see, right? Good for the league to see him go somewhere. Crying out loud, he'd be there for 6 weeks in a playoff run.
I would want, though, Pat Kane and Max Domi to come as a package right now because
Max Domi
they're
really.
on fire.
I texted you guys the other night that he was humming against the Leafs.
That's his. Remember that World Junior in Toronto where he just owned it?
Yeah.
He's kind of moving around like that. Like he made some really nice plays last night.
I imagine he's available. I imagine Sam Lafferty's available.
He's got 46 points in 47 games this year, Max.
On a
Domi.
crummy team, it's hard to get points on a bad team.
He has to be leading their team in points.
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
He's one of 3 people leading his team in points and PIMS, along with Brady Tkachuk and Sidney Crosby.
Oh, so he's still mean
Sid.
too. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you want him on the Leafs or what?
When he
I
plays in the
don't
Leafs, will he
know.
wear,
The Leafs didn't want him.
will he wear number 28
I
on
don't
the
think
Leafs?
the
or no?
Leafs have any interest in him. They had ample opportunities to get him, and they weren't interested.
Do you think they're still interested in Patrick Kane or no?
There's just no way. If the Leafs added another big forward, you two would just bury them.
Where would he fit? Where we had this conversation a while ago.
Left wing.
Well, yeah, and then you can bump Tavares down to the third line, and then you have O'Reilly,
Yeah,
Caves.
you got an $11 million third liner,
You're going to anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Sid versus McDavid tonight.
I mean, this McDavid fella, guys, I just feel like it's redundant to talk about him. But did you see the spin he made against the Flyers up by the blue line where he put it through his own feet? And
Yeah.
He's
Do that again.
what the hell is that?
it's a thought that not a lot of humans have had.
No.
Let's just say that.
Just, he's human, and you just think that there's going to be a stretch where you just don't
Just go
notice
cold
him.
or don't feel
You don't
great
notice him.
or just to sleep through a game or two.
Yeah. And Austin has shown that he's human in that capacity. Like,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. He beat out McDavid for the Hart Trophy last year, and he has had not a whole lot of games this year where you go, whoa. So,
It's really, as a guy who said last year that Austin Matthews is better than Connor McDavid, and one of my most regretful takes I've ever had, and I've had a lot of bad ones, boys. It does hurt the fandom of Austin Matthews that Connor McDavid is just going to go out there and score 60 this year, the year after Austin Matthews did it.
if Austin Matthews got 40 points tonight, he would be behind Matthews by 8 points.
What? Say that again.
If Austin Matthews scored 40 points tonight, tomorrow night,
yes,
he would be behind McDavid by
okay. There you go.
actually by like, I don't know what it's 8 or 9 points this year.
I get it. Again, this week where you watched Austin and just there's nothing that really stood out against Buffalo on a night where Ryan O'Reilly and Marner and Tavares completely owned it.
Yeah.
But he's still going to come close to scoring 40 goals.
Who, Matthews?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
Well, because he
okay,
catches
it's
it
not
and he shoots
60
it.
and it's not 50.
Yeah.
But it's still, it's going to end up, he's going to end up with 40.
Yeah.
I don't know what the exact pace is right now.
Yeah.
Is it 37,
Yeah.
38, but 41, 42.
He's a 6'3", 220-pound center that's going to
Just-
score 40 goals, and we're all like, I don't know.
But
He's okay.
I'm not convinced he's going to score 40.
no,
No.
Yeah, out here.
He's got 2 multi-goal games all year, Ken.
He has 26 goals with 24 games left. So he needs 14 goals in 24 games. Good chance. I'd say highly likely.
Both of you guys just laughed at me on our prediction show at the start of the year when I said he wasn't going to score 50 goals this year. I just got roasted for that.
oh my God. Can we go to the tape, please?
I would
don't recall
re-roast
that
you
at
for
all.
that. Even if it's
I said he was gonna
right,
score- I said
it's a
he's
dumb take.
47?
I said he was
46?
going to score 48 goals this year.
All
Even-
right.
Because it's impossible to live up to last year.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
McDavid keeps doing it. He's
Ovi
showing
does
us
it.
it's possible to keep doing it over and
Ovi
over
did
and
it
over.
over those years.
Did Ovi score 60 goals 2 years in a row? No.
Well, no one's done that, but the goal scoring pace is higher now than it's been in a long time. I mean, I don't know what Ovi's peak years were, but they're good. They're good.
The year after Ovi scored 60, he scored 56.
What Austin can't do is on some nights sleepwalk.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, you can't
Right?
sleepwalk in the playoffs at all.
No, and that's all that we or the Leaf Nation, everybody
If he-
cares about.
Yeah, if he scores no points from
Well,
here
it's
to the
not- it's not
playoffs,
gonna-
no, he's not going to do that. But if he did score no points from here to the playoffs and then scored 15 points in the first round, no one would care.
No one would ever speak of it
He
again.
would be forgiven
But that's
for a slump.
when the pressure starts.
Yeah.
I think,
right now.
but I just think that, that's why O'Reilly is really important to the Leafs, because he's just one extra guy that can put the puck in the net and has done it.
Sure.
And has done it. And it's like you get down to those games where, like we've talked about and Hitch talked about, canceling out the top 2 lines, and you need a big goal from someone else outside of the big 4. You now have 2 guys that you traded for that can score that big goal, right?
Yeah.
O'Reilly, Chari could chip one in. Could picture that. Those are my 2 picks for outside of the big 4 to score a big goal for the Leafs now. O'Reilly and
Love
Chari.
it. Better than Engvall,
Oh,
which was our previous pick.
Oh, yeah.
Ovi's back. Can he save Washington?
No.
Should he save Washington is the better question. Like, okay, so they squeak in to get drubbed by Boston. Is that better for them long term for next season? You know what would make them really good is trading Dmitry Orlov to the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Nothing. Listen, I think the owner, Ted Leons, has said it, that as long as Ovi's on and he's marching down Gretzky's record, they want to compete, man. It's not a draft pick, and they're not going to get Connor Bedard.
Right.
So
Yeah. Why would they sell?
why would they sell?
Yeah. 5 straight losses might.
And they have no
be part of
defense
it.
signed other than, I think, Carlson next year.
I'm-
Think about that for a second. You want to compete with Ovi and you want to
Go
keep pushing.
1D under contract.
sign some defense.
I'm really happy you brought up Connor Bedard because I wanted to do a Connor Bedard check-in here.
Okay.
This is from Sportsnet Stats, which is an excellent follow on Twitter. Regina's Pats star Connor Bedard has recorded 6 points tonight in a 6-3 win over the Medicine Hat Tigers. Bedard has as many 6-point games this season as 0-point games this season with 2.
So what you're saying is inconsistent.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying.
Wow.
And in his career in the WHL, he has 2 6-point games, 7 5-point games, 17 4-point games, 38 3-point games, and 35 2-point games.
Holy smokes.
17 4-point games.
This kid might just make it.
I really, really think that he is going to be quite good in the NHL. I'm predicting.
What did I see today? It's Pat LaFontaine's birthday today. Happy birthday, Pat.
Happy birthday to Pat. Yeah.
And the year 82, 83, how many points did he have?
With the Verdun Juniors
Yes.
of the QMJHL in
Yes.
70 games, he had 104 goals and 130 assists for 234 pimps. And
Eat your heart out,
points.
Connor
Wow, the
Bedard.
QMJHL didn't used to have goalies. That's
Yeah,
a little unknown fact. Everyone's stat line
in
is
82,
like
83, there was some
4.
82, 83 in the Q. Well, there's a bit of open ice. That's just-
there's some room to get around out there.
and in 15 playoff games, he had 35 points.
Kipper scored 60 North Bay at a 600. And
We
I couldn't even
had,
think of a city in Quebec. That was
year-
pathetic.
My third year, I think we were OHL versus the Quebec League.
Yeah.
In a 2 out of 3, and I never seen the Q before, really, other than that. And I think they had Luc Robitaille and Sylvain Cote and Jimmy Carson, and it was like the flying, like the V's.
Flying alphabet, all the different letters.
I don't think they skated. I think they just flew, you know? And they're twisting and turning, and I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Get me out of here. I have no business being out here.
Wild stats from those years.
Well,
Look at Luke Robitaille from those
We
years.
had Corson,
Yeah.
Karkner. We had a
punching people in the
Chikrin.
mouth.
We had like 6'5" guys. That
Yeah.
can't even catch these guys.
I'm looking
beat the
at
crap out of them.
I'm looking at the 82-83 QMJHL season now.
Yeah.
And the Verdun Juniors were in second place to Laval. And on Laval was Mario Lemieux. And he scored 84 goals and 100 assists for 184 points in 66 games. So he did not have nearly as good a year. Imagine those games, Pat LaFontaine versus
Yeah.
Mario Lemieux and Junior. Pretty exciting.
We should be able to sell. Our sales team at Sportsnet should be able to sell. The Real Kyper and Bourne show looks at things on Google.
Well, I know. I'm on Hockey
End of
DB right now,
shows.
which is my favorite website.
We always have a portion at the end of the show where we're like, is that right? Let's look that up.
Oh, I love looking at Hockey DB. That's one of my favorite activities.
It is good. So the New York Islanders, they beat the Winnipeg Jets last night. No big deal. 6-2-2 in their last 10. They're hurt. They're AHL laden, but they
They're
got Sorokin and
holding-
Horvat,
They are
boys.
like popsicle sticks right now.
They are coming apart at the seams.
No,
They're winning.
the Elmer's glue's still holding up there.
It is. Horvat has been the most essential addition to a team. Like, without, I don't know where they'd be. He plays, I don't know how many minutes, 22 minutes a night. He's on every special teams, every important shift. The guy's out there. Yesterday, he had a PK shift where he ragged the puck and got a standing O. This guy's been an awesome ad for the Islanders.
Do they make it?
They make it. Yeah.
They stay.
Yeah. They're going to make it.
And who's out? Pitt's out. Washington's out. Florida's out.
Yeah. I see the other wild card team. Oh, could it be Detroit, guys? Detroit's got a real good chance here. They're 4 games in hand on Florida and 2 points behind them for the last wild card spot. Go
Did you
Wings,
see
go.
Stevie Yzerman adding anything? now.
Just added
I don't see
7
it.
new players in the offseason.
The two teams for me that I don't see adding anything really of significance and just want to
Why would you not see Detroit adding?
Because of significance.
Yeah.
Right? I just think that they have a vision of their build
Mm-hmm.
and they're not gonna speed dial it.
Okay.
And
think they did
Seattle's
this summer,
the other
but-
one. Seattle's the other one. I don't see them getting all hot and heavy over their season so far and go, okay, we're maybe one player away from a conference final.
Can I be the first person to say, since that team has joined the league, to hell with Seattle, to hell with them.
You don't like them?
No, I don't. I didn't.
Wow.
I didn't like how
The
passive.
Squids. How could you say that?
I didn't like how passive
They're not
they were.
exciting you at all.
No, I didn't like how passive they were with their entry draft.
They didn't treat themselves at all.
Didn't treat themselves to anything fun or anything nice. They're doing defense and goaltending. They're in a weak division. They're okay. They got a bunch of depth guys
Do you
that
know
are
who their general
fine.
manager is? It's Ron Francis.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just this kind of quiet.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, nothing too exciting about Ron Francis. And
I'd rather
he seems
you
like
be
a
the
nice
GM
guy. I
then.
don't know him all that well, but he's not a real exciting guy.
Well, I'm not real excited by Seattle, so that makes sense.
They put Chris Drieger on waivers today. The Squids did.
Okay.
The
What
goalie.
did they end up paying him? Like if he's the
3 years,
$3 million.
3 years, $3.5 million. They paid him.
Yeah.
$3.5 million.
3.5 per year.
Yeah, maybe the Leafs could take a chance on Drieger.
I don't know. Yeah. I mean, I'd rather they get Carson Soucy.
Was that
Carson Soucy's fine.
Was that signing after Grubauer or before Grubauer?
That's a great question.
I don't
One
know.
that I don't know if I have time
Grubauer
to
was
look
the
it up.
one they announced like up on stage with Mark Giordano, so he
Was it?
presumably was there. Oh
Yeah,
yeah, handsome man, looking great.
Okay.
But yeah. So anyway, my hope, and I'll just go. I'm going to go ahead and lay it out there. I would like to see Seattle fall out in the Pacific, get Edmonton and Calgary in there. Let's just do that. Vegas and the Albertan teams.
What is going to happen?
They can have a wild card spot if they want.
Like Calgary went over Arizona last night, which is good on them, but
Yeah.
like they're not looking like a team that even if they got in can stretch anything.
Do you think so
out.
though? Like to me, they're Tinder. Like they're just not the app, but actual small pieces of wood. Like they're ready at any time to go to catch fire.
No,
the flames, if you will.
I don't see it.
You don't, eh?
No, I don't see it, and I don't know what it is. It's just is
To
it
me,
a chemistry thing?
they've
Are
been
they
so up and
Are they
down.
just are they just a little too slow collectively?
Not a fast team. Definitely not a fast team. I'm gonna
Um,
give you their fancies here while we're.
quickly. Philip Grubauer was signed on July 28th, 2021, and Chris Drieger was signed on July 21st, 2021.
Drieger
So
went first.
Drieger was 7 days before Grubauer was signed. And
Just to me,
they
that's
have
just shocking.
Calgary.
They have
is
not-
the-
yeah.
That you would go and spend that type of money on that guy, and then a week later go and get
to start your
big horse.
organization. Now you're waving them a year and a half later. Calgary's the 4th best defensive team by expected goals in the NHL.
But that's
They
not
could-
on the back of
dork.
Markstrom,
They could,
right?
I do have glasses.
And that's not off the back
What
of
if
Markstrom.
Markstrom starts to play well? They trade for one more guy who shoots it in the net. Flames win the
You
Pacific.
got a lot of if my aunt had,
Yeah, I
she'd
do.
be my
I know
uncle
the expression.
kind of,
yeah. Seems
There's
like
a lake up we'd all be fishing. All right, our thanks to Billy Garrett. Who else do we have on the show? Mike Rupp and Dave Amber. We're back tomorrow, everybody. Have a great night.